Welcome to my garden, the GinGeeGoodEarth show. I'm your host, Ginger. This is a GinGeeGoodEarth production, Roman numeral 7, part 16. GinGeeGoodEarth, July 14th, 2020, USA. Take love. Welcome to my GinGeeGoodEarth show, and I want you to enjoy the picture show. So I have many collections of photographs from the Pittsburgh Victorian Gibson girls and Joe Pye Music Festival productions that have been performed in the Pittsburgh Southwest region and also in New York and Saratoga Springs, New York, the most Victorian town in America, which was featured in the very first magazine of Victoria magazine. And I had a 3-day notice to perform with my 40-member choir, all dressed in Victorian and Civil War ensemble, at the Stephen Foster Memorial, which is located downtown Oakland, right on University of Pittsburgh and the Carnegie Museum of Art. And I love Stephen Foster. He's a fantastic composing artist. And please look him up on the Wikipedia site and also look up Stephen Foster Memorial. And the Pittsburgh Victorian Gibson girls were invited to celebrate the 100th anniversary of Stephen Foster, the famous Pittsburgh composer. And there was a beautiful statue outside the Stephen Foster Memorial, and they had taken down the statue because 100 years ago, Stephen Foster wrote lyrics to a song that described the slavery and the Civil War and what was happening during that time in the 1800s. And I missed the statue. I thought it was a beautiful piece of work of art, and now it's in a private residence. They had to move it because people were vandalizing it. And again, there was a banjo player, and he was African American, and they felt that they didn't like to see the banjo player playing along with Stephen Foster. And again, Stephen Foster played with many musicians, many ensembles, and he died quite young too. He didn't live a long life. And he, again, never made any money on his music compositions. And he became famous after his death and over the years because his songs were singable. They were sing-along songs. And I have some pictures of Annie with the long brown hair. And again, I would encourage you to look him up. But what I have now with me right now is an article that was written in the Pittsburgh paper by Paul Cancore. I need a light. Paul Cancore is a professor of political science and chief academic fellow of the Institute for Faith and Freedom at Grove City College. So while you're enjoying the picture show, I'm going to read the article. Paul Cancore, Tribune Review. Tear all the statues down? Last weekend, I overheard 2 recent grads, both musicians, discussing America's greatest composers. The usual names were erased: Copland, Gershwin, Bernstein, Sousa, Foster. Who? Said one. Stephen Foster, replied the other. Now Conrad Sousa, I helped put together a program to celebrate Johnny Costa. Conrad Sousa, he wrote operatic plays and compositions that got awards. Stephen Foster, replied the other. While you're looking at the picture show, I have to get a sip of water. I get choked up because I get choked up and very sad-hearted that that there was no basis to remove that statue. But basically, they weren't going to let that statue be, tormented and dismantled and torn apart. So that's why it was moved. When you have a vote of 6 people on a board making a decision, I don't think that's fair representation. So, and it really breaks my heart. It made me very sad. So the one boy said, Foster? Stephen Foster, replied the other. Who? Only one knew who Foster was, and neither knew he was from Pittsburgh. Both, ironically, Rip recently spent a lot of time in Oakland, where the Stephen Foster statue once stood outside the Carnegie Museum. And not only did they remove the statue, there was a beautiful mural. It was a painting on a brick wall in Lawrenceville, and they removed that also. It was so diabolical that they had moved both these wonderful celebratory composer, musician, all-Americana. Yeah. We should have been singing and marching during halftime at the football games to Stephen Foster. And even the Pittsburgh Victorian Gibson girls, I handed the newsletter to Coach Cower in hopes that he would invite us to do a performance during halftime. It's all American. Civil War reenactors. They're celebrating the culture. It's not just the music, it's the dress, it's the performance, it's the languages, it's a mingling of a melting pot of people. It's the American Constitution. It's the way that we were able to create an amendment that abolished slavery. I mean, where is our focus? So I'm going to start the article over in the beginning. Tear all the statues down. Last weekend, I overheard 2 recent grads, both musicians, discussing America's greatest composers. The usual names were raised: Copland, Gershwin, Bernstein, Sousa, who I knew personally, Foster. Who? Said one. Stephen Foster, replied the other. Only one knew who Foster was, and neither knew he was from Pittsburgh. Both, ironically, recently spent a lot of time in Oakland, where the Stephen Foster statue once stood outside the Carnegie. The statue depicting Foster above a banjo strumming black man, and I don't like color coding, represented of his song Uncle Ned, was removed in April of 2018 after contentious debate. The massive statue designed by Italian sculptor Giuseppe Moretti in 1900 was hauled away one morning to a city facility somewhere in Highland Park to spare it from destruction and being dismantled. Someone had taken the guitar and ruined the banjo. "So who was he?" the one young person asked. I shared with little I knew, which had developed slowly as I passed that statue countless times during my years at Pitt University. The Pittsburgh native composed songs like "Oh, Susanna," and was an early master of marketing pop music. I tried to explain what people found offensive about Foster, the statue, the Uncle Ned character. It was a bronze statue, so everybody was of a bronze color. My limited understanding is that Ned was a fictionalized slave in what some say was an anti-slavery song. This turned into a teachable moment. In fact, that's the task of all of us, to teach these things. You learn about past mistakes to avoid repeating them. Consider Confederate statues. I've always detested the Confederacy in how it ripped apart this nation in the attempted preservation of an evil institution, which was known as slavery. And not only that, look up the number of deaths on both sides of the Civil War. Everybody lost a father, a brother, a grandson, a grandfather, on both sides. I'm a native of Pennsylvania, a Union guy, a truly Lincoln Republican, great-great-grandson of the local Flynn family that fought Stonewall Jackson. I could give a damn about honoring the Confederacy. I teach students that slavery was an abomination that violated all precepts of basic dignity and humans created in the image of God, and yet as a historian, I want these things to be learned. I don't know why people can't turn them into teachable moments. I've written content for museum exhibits of historical figures. At the base of these statues, there should be descriptions detailing the crucial, painful history that must be remembered. For instance, we're in the longest-lasting 20-year war in the history of America. And in Westmoreland County, we're building the Patriot Day Plaza War on Terror, which will be a walk-around park, which is going to review from 1972 until September 11th of 2021, how, why, who, when the War on Terror started, so that we can learn from our history and be educated on why war is hell. And there'll be talking exhibit monitors on each platform that's going to be illustrated. And I saw the park descriptions and the architectural landscaping layout, and it's going to be a very nice park for our veterans and their families and the communities to come and visit and reflect on the longest lasting 20-year war in America and why we want our soldiers to come home from all the armed forces. Of course, what started with the Confederate generals has now extended to statues of Union generals, even Ulysses S. Grant, who ironically defeated the Confederacy before battling the KKK and fighting for Black Americans' right to vote. Now targeted are everyone from George Washington to Teddy Roosevelt to St. Junipero Serra, or even Lincoln himself and all of Mount Rushmore. What outrages me is the selectivity, namely, those exempted from outrage. I've written insistently about Margaret Sanger, her racial eugenics, the Negro Project, her May 1926 speech to the women chapter of the Silver Lake, New Jersey, KKK. Black pastors have complained about her bust at the Smithsonian, and yet as founder of Planned Parenthood, she's an icon to liberals. Her memorials remain untouched. Currently, we're focused on race. But what about allegations of how certain icons mistreated women? From Alexander Hamilton and Ben Franklin to John F. Kennedy and even Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. We're all flawed. We're all sinners. Here's my proposal. If you want to go down this road, then be willing to take them all down, from Jefferson to Sanger, from Columbus to 16-foot-tall bronze Lenin in Seattle. If we're going to do this, do it equally. Paul Kanger is a professor of political science and chief academic fellow of the Institute for Faith and Freedom at Grove City College. And I did ad-lib about history throughout his article, so I didn't read it from verbatim. Okay, so now I want to go back to the book. This is going to be a long show today. Our People, Our Future, a description of Native American culture. So where I left off was on teepees, and you'll have to go back to the previous videos. All Native American do not wear war bonnets. The war bonnet was originally made from golden eagle feathers and was developed by Native American nations living west of the Mississippi. Each feather in a war bonnet represents an honorable act that its wearer has accomplished while defending his home and nation. Most Native American men have headwear that is representative of their tribal affiliation, ranging from cloth to elaborately decorated reed or feather hats. All Native Americans do not greet each other by saying how, H-O-W, how. No, that is a misnomer. Many Native American languages or dialects require the use of sounds that are not produced in the English language. Like, for instance, Amukwa is the name for beaver in Shawnee language. Elegwe is the name for the Allegheny River. These sounds are usually made at the back of the throat or through the nasal passages, and they communicate wordless expressions of approval, disapproval, joking, or acknowledgement. Today there are some 250 nation languages, and no group of words are common to all of them. However, almost all Native Americans use the English language for communicating with non-tribal or non-nation people. And also they use their hands and motions almost as a first American sign language to communicate. All Native Americans do not wear feathers. Feathers of certain birds are sometimes worn as part of a spiritual ceremony or dance. The powers of these birds are believed to be evoked through spiritual ceremony. All Native Americans are not alcoholics. Early traders and government agencies manipulated Native American individuals and communities by encouraging consumption of alcohol, and hence the debilitating impact of alcohol became widespread. Debilitating impact of alcohol became widespread. There's the new 3Ds. It used to be, well, I wrote about and talked about the 3Ds: disease, disability, and death. Now it's debility, and then the third one is dread, but I'll get back to it, but there is a word missing there. Debility, blank, dread. That's the new 3Ds that they're talking about now. So I'm going to backtrack. All Americans are not alcoholics. All Native Americans are not alcoholics. Early traders and government agencies manipulated Native American individuals and communities by encouraging consumption of alcohol, and hence the debilitating impact of alcohol became widespread. Alcoholism continues to be a major problem among Native American people, though clearly not all drink alcohol, and most Native American communities frown upon its consumption. Substance abuse programs that include treatment which is sensitive to the background and history of the Native American community need to be further developed. Another misnomer: all Native Americans do not live on reservations or out west. Most media images and history books about Native Americans suggest that all Indians are living in the western United States on reservations, when a majority actually live in urban areas throughout the United States. These published images usually ignore the Native Americans who resided east of the Mississippi River in the 19th century, surviving the slave trade, disease, and land-grabbing immigrants. Another misnomer: Native Americans are not dishonest. The false image regarding honesty has unfortunately been caused by media exploitations of popular Indians. The historical roots of this misconception date back to the early explorers who destroyed the integrity and character of Native Americans by portraying them as dishonest. Many of the treaties established between the Indian nations and the United States were broken, not by Native American peoples, but by the federal government. Native Americans are business owners. The misconception that Native Americans are not business owners was created by the stereotyping of Indians in early television and film. There are many Native American entrepreneurs and businesses, ranging from grocery stores and multi-million-dollar casinos to tourism and natural resources management. Native Americans are not primitive and uneducated. Traditional Native American values emphasize simplicity in daily living. However, that is not commensurate with primitive. Most Native Americans are educated at secondary school level, and many obtain higher education degrees at the finest universities in the United States, becoming physicians, lawyers, and college professors. All Native American people are not mystical, spiritual environmentalists. Native Americans view harmony with the earth as part of a religious culture and are extremely aware of the impact actions have on the environment. Native Americans view the earth as a living entity, a provider. The spiritual ceremonies of Native Americans are complex and may be difficult for people outside the culture to understand. These ceremonies may seem mystical in nature because of annual timing, the use of an ancient symbolism, the incorporation of the earth's gifts, and the earth should be spelled with a capital E, so that's a misprint in this brochure, and the significant role of our religious leaders. I'll read the last sentence again. These ceremonies may seem mystical in nature because of annual timing, the use of an ancient symbolism, the incorporation of the earth's gifts, and the true significant role of religious leaders. So we'll stop there and I will finish that in another video, but it does remind me of a poem that was written by Larissa Johnson, and it's about Mother Earth, and we spell Earth with a capital E. So I'm going to finish this video with a poetry reading, and it's called Beautiful. 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 Beautiful, written by Larissa Johnson. The waters are beautiful, so why do you pollute them? Do you want to die from thirst? Do you no longer want to swim with the dolphins or lay on the beach with the water? The sky is beautiful, so why do you pollute it? Do you want to die from poison you breathe? Do you no longer want to soar with the eagle or run through the fields with the wind and the wild? The ground is beautiful, so why do you pollute it? Do you want to die from starvation? Do you no longer want to watch the butterfly, the honeybee, or walk through the woods with the sun? The earth is beautiful, so why do you pollute it? Do you want to never again see the stars, moon, or sun? Do you want to never again feel the wind or water around you? Do you want to never again watch the butterfly, the honeybee, soar with the eagle, or swim with the dolphin? The earth is everything, is our mother. Take care of her. Lastly, I want to read a recipe out of the Stouffer's restaurant manual. Pineapple Dream. Pour into a shaker a level bar spoon powdered sugar, a ½ ounce of lime juice, a ½ ounce of fresh pineapple juice, and 1 ounce of white rum. Shake with cracked ice and strain into a California cocktail glass. Doesn't that sound refreshing? Also, as a reminder, make sure you include grapefruit, oranges, pineapple, lemons and limes, and all the additional varied fruits. Incorporate them into your healthy menu plan daily. And grapefruits is kind of an acquired taste because grapefruits have a sour aftertaste. But again, you could slice a grapefruit in half and sprinkle sugar on it or a sugar substitute to help with that sourness, and then you're getting the benefits of the nutrition from the grapefruit. And without further ado, I'd like to wish you a happy day, and every morning wake up with a song in your heart. The GinGeeGoodEarth show, you can look at the books that I have written, and they're ready for purchase on the Etsy.com store name Wild Trout Lily. Also, you can reach me at gibsongirls@mail.com, and I will respond to letters on the GinGeeGoodEarth videos. I have a disclaimer after each video on the description. Also, if you'd like to contribute donations and funds to my video, you'll see my PayPal address written in the description. And I want you to have a great day. It's a great July 14th. We have 90-degree weather in the state of Pennsylvania with cool nights, and that's normal. In the future of my videos, I will be reviewing climate issues and crisis.